and I hope that everyone can see it. Um, the chat has been super fun. Just to say, love about bubble links and people connecting to grasslands and the places that they have visited in Ontario or in South America. Thank you all for participating there. And I'm glad that everyone had fun. Thank you, Kurt, for such a great comprehensive report from the chair. And thank you to all the staff. This is one of the reasons why we are all here. All of those faces right there are the people that are the beating heart for Ontario Nature on the day to day. And as much as members, volunteers, and all our community that are also that beating heart. So thank you very much. I am very blessed to work with you. Then also, thank you to the Ontario Board of Directors for trusting me and giving me the opportunity and for ensuring that Ontario Nature is in a healthy place to continue the vital work that we do. With that said, let's jump into the Executive Director report and let's see how we were there when nature needed us most, and we will continue to be there. So the first thing is remembering why we're here. And John, please let me know when I have hit the 5-minute mark. Um, by now, most of people know our mission, and I like to start things with why. I have spoken with dozens of staff and board members, and there is a strong sense of why. The reason why we exist and behave like we do. This why seems to be formed by our mission on everyone I've spoken to. And I have heard we should not compromise our values. And that is why I'm recapping them here, but not as the word, not as collaboration, inclusion, leadership, reconciliation, but the things that matter that these values codify. And this is how I've understand them. These are the values in my own words from my conversation with people is sharing and working together. It's learning and working with all peoples is leading by example. Ontario Nature has led in many landmark happenings, like the creation of the Greenbelt, which we successfully did with many partners, and also on the work to keep that Greenbelt there. Embracing diverse opinions and worldviews. That goes to respect, and that goes to the words from Albert Marshall. We support Indigenous peoples. We show up. We have critical thinking for integrity. That's why we use critical thinking and science-based decision making. And then we think about sustainability for generations to come. As I was diving into Albert Marshall, he mentioned what 7 generations mean. And for him, 7 generations means 840 years. Imagine if we were to be making decisions for the next 840 years. And we're building coalitions. We were established in 1931. It's an organization with 30,000 members and 150 member groups, but this keeps on growing. In my mind, Ontario Nature has been shaping into 3 aspects: on-the-ground conservation, thought leadership, and nature connection. There are many more aspects, yes, but this is what I've been grasping so far. And this comment right here really exemplifies it. This is from Paola Setares, the Director of Public Affairs for the Ontario Society of Professional Engineers. Ontario Nature has contributed to shape a more thoughtful and evidence-based approach to all the changes in policy that comes into the province. And that is who we are and who we have been for 94 years. That is part of our why, building and connecting. And so when we think about our strategic plan, we go to the first goal, in which we work to expand and secure protected areas across Ontario through partnerships, reconciliation, and land use influence to meet biodiversity and climate targets. Over the past year, we've continued to protect the lands that protect us. We stewarded nearly 8,000 acres across our nature reserves and expanded Gananoque Lake by 55 acres, home to 16 species at risk. At the Sydenham River Nature Reserve, we planted over 43,000 native species to restore tallgrass prairie and Carolinian habitats. In September, we conducted a 9-hectare prescribed burn at Stone Road Albert Nature Reserve on Pelee Island, part of the long-term collaboration with Indigenous communities, researchers, and conservation partners. And we're already seeing positive impacts on species at risk, like one of my favorites that I really want to go and see. I'm not gonna say who. Use the chat and try to guess. We also launched a regional ecological corridor initiative in partnership with Garden River First Nation, the city of Sault Ste. Marie, and Algoma Highlands Conservancy. With Parks Canada support, we are identifying priority areas for biodiversity connectivity in this transition zone between mixed and boreal forest. Finally, we submitted over 14,000 hectares to Canada's Protected Areas database in collaboration with municipalities and conservation authorities, securing national recognition for lands that Ontario Nature and this partners in responsibility are committed to stewarding for future generations. And here are some photos to animate all of those amazing results. It's always great to see people on the land, and you get to see Tharania there and our team in the Altberg Wetland Nature Reserve. And you also get to see some of the work that has been happening in Sindham River Nature Reserve. And why do I say it's important to see people on the land? Because a study in conservation biology found a significant decline in fieldwork-based research, with a 20% decrease in the frequency of fieldwork-based publications compared to a 600 to 800% increase in modeling and data synthesis studies. This trend is observed across various scientific fields and attributed to a combination of factors, from funding limitations to academic pressures and technological advancements. I strongly believe that we need people on the land. And then not having people on the land leads to this loss of ecological understanding. Reduced fieldwork can hinder the understanding of complex ecological processes and relationships, but it also limits our conservation efforts. Fieldwork is crucial for informing conservation strategies and assessing the effectiveness of conservation action. Now, I would like to point you to the Ecological Corridor project area. And this is part of the collaboration with Gardner River First Nation, in which we secured funding successfully from Parks Canada to delineate an ecological corridor in one of the national priority areas for habitat connectivity. Now, our second goal, protect wild species and wild spaces. Here we strengthen policy science and advocacy efforts to protect species at risk, or we aim to. And we advance habitat restoration and ensure Ontario upholds biodiversity commitments. In the past year, Ontario Nature submitted 12 policy recommendations to strengthen biodiversity and land use protections, including comments on expanding protected areas in Ontario, restoring wetland protections, species at risk recovery strategies, and provincial park management plans. We helped raise nature's profile during both provincial and federal elections. On the ground, our team and partners documented over 6,800 snakes across more than 100 sites using our standardized snake long-term monitoring protocol, vital data for species protection. Ontario Nature is a key partner in the third Ontario Breeding Bird Atlas, with nearly 1,700 volunteers contributing to this effort, one of the largest biodiversity efforts in the country. Our team surveyed 35 squares in central Ontario and hosted numerous outreach events to train communities participants across the province, contributing towards this effort. All of this was made possible through a $340,000 investment in conservation science and species at risk program. And it's always good to see the work. I hope that everyone here has seen our Ontario Reptile and Amphibian Atlas. If you haven't, go and look for it. It's one of the best publications I've seen. But our Ontario policy team also developed and released 2 wise practice reports targeted at how municipalities can contribute to Canada's protected areas and strengthen wetland conservation. These reports now form the basis of our municipal outreach and engagement. A wise practice report is about learning from what works, respecting place-based knowledge, and adapting for impact for those of you that are not familiar with it. We were also heavily involved in both the provincial and federal elections, advocating for nature to be an election issue. For the provincial election, we had top policy asks developed with input from board, staff, nature network groups, and members and supporters that provided the foundation for our advocacy. Now, on our third goal, according to our strategic plan, grow our base and engage more people, especially youth, many communities, all communities, and partners in conservation through education, volunteering, and strategic communications. With over 1.3 million invested in youth, development, and communications, Ontario Nature is seeing effective impact. We engage 1,405 youth. If you start thinking about the generational change that is happening across the world, youth now is more important than ever. And through our Nature Guardians, we build strong relationships. Our youth council has 96 members, and these are the future leaders for conservation. Our community now includes over 30,000 members and supporters, with 85,000 views on our Herp Atlas and staggering 300 million media impressions. Views and impressions aren't just numbers, and sometimes we just see them, so many views. They show how many people we've reached with our message. Like imagine handing out 300 million pamphlets for nature without using a single tree. This is the leverage for change. And with 3 new groups joining our Ontario Nature Network, we're growing the grassroots foundation needed to protect nature across Ontario. We're growing that connection. We are eager to engage more people, especially youth, all communities, and partners in conservation through all the tools that we have in our belt. And once again, people on the land and people doing fun stuff. You can see the 2024 Youth Summit participants, an amazing group of young folks, and then some walks that are led by our youth council. And some of them about birds, some of them about wetlands. And thank you for the leaders of these walks. Thank you to the youth council, and I hope some of them are here with us today. Now, our 4th goal, in which we are aiming to diversify and grow funding streams to sustain and scale up conservation programs. Remember, I mentioned it's important to have people on the land. Remember, I mentioned it's important to talk when it's needed and for our voice to be heard. Well, we need to ensure long-term funding for delivering on that mission. Ontario Nature members are the heart and soul of our work, and it is very clear from our financials. 57% of donations received our gift from individuals like you, like everyone here. So thank you. Pat yourself in the back and be happy. Thanks to the generosity of you and all these people, we can act as the voice for nature in Ontario. The more members we have, the more representation of different communities, the more we can show up for nature and say what needs to be said. We are the organizations and people that voice our concerns, and you are the one making it happen. Thanks to the extraordinary generosity of our members and supporters, Ontario Nature raised over $5 million this year, an increase of $858,000 or 20% from the previous year. We also saw a 13% increase in total contributions. And this comes from grants, governments, foundations, and other institutions. Kudos to all the team that is working hard on achieving these goals. Bequests rose by 121,000, an incredible testament to the long-standing commitments made by those who believed in the protection of nature for future generations. With this growth, we secured new multi-year funding, strategically invested across all programs, and expanded our team to match the scale of our mission. Together, we are ensuring lasting impact for Ontario's wild species and wild spaces. I said that again, and I will say it. Thank you. And people like Stephen Yates give us some nice words to remember. And our decision to offer this property for sale so it can be protected forever was simple. Who can really own the forest? We're just stewards taking care of it for the next generation. A highlight of this year is meeting our fundraising goal and expanding our Gananoque Lake Nature Reserve in the Fortune Arch. This expansion was 23.7 hectares, 55 acres, I mentioned it before, and has increased overall conservation lands and climate resiliency within the arch. UNESCO World Biosphere Reserve that is considered one of the most biologically diverse areas in Canada. The acquired property consists of intact natural habitat featuring deciduous and mixed forests, swamps, open rock barrens, I imagine all the amphibians and reptiles there, wetlands, thicket swamp, and shoreline along the lake. Protecting this property bolsters habitat connectivity along the Algonquin to Adirondack A2A, whom many of you might be familiar to it, the corridor, and adjacent protected areas, such as Ontario Nature's Lost Bay Nature Reserve, Thousand Islands Natural Park, and other land trust properties. A highlight of the year was surpassing our fundraising goal to acquire this 50-acre property. It was amazing. We went above and beyond. And once again, it's thanks to everyone here. And this is a group of members and staff being in the field doing what we care the most about. This has 3 staff and 1 board member at our Ontario Nature's annual gathering on the Saugeen Peninsula. We received a special invite from a member of the Yashinigami First Nation to visit the reserve lands. And so We also want to appreciate our partners. And then this is a very powerful testimonial. This is a photo of Don, and it's about legacy giving and celebrating the generosity of our legacy donors. Donald Collison made a generous gift to Ontario Nature in his will. The sentiment share here is from his good friend and state trustee. We are working closely with him to ensure that Don's bequest is invested in a program that he cared about deeply, which is supporting bird conservation. Thank you, Don. Now, everyone ask, looking ahead, what's going to happen? What is our next chapter together? Well, the one thing I can say is that from now on, we walk together. And I want to say that we need to have keen eyes, that we need to have open, receptive ears, and that we need to think about connection, having a connecting voice, but also have agile movements. And it is no coincidence that we think about the loon, that we think about Mang. Listening, we're doing a listening tour with staff, network donors, and Indigenous leaders. Discovery is discovering Ontario Nature Soul, and this is a lot for me. You might already know it, but I need to find out, and I want everyone to remember what that soul is. And then I mentioned modernizing systems and sharpening our strategic focus. When there's so much pressure for nature, we usually feel inclined to do everything. We cannot do everything, and we need to make sure that we say no when we need to say no, and that we say yes when we need to say yes. Then focusing on growth around nature-based climate solutions, growing our advocacy as well, but also growing in our support to Indigenous-led conservation. And finally, maybe refreshing our organizational direction and focusing our gaze in our centennial strategic plan. We're going to be 100 in 2031. This is a tremendous opportunity to have this centennial strategic plan that will see us into our second century together. And this is part of that release. I wanna highlight that it says I feel a deep sense of responsibility, but that responsibility needs to be tied with joy. The joy for nature, because that's the way in which we don't feel paralyzed. There is no antidote to fear, but there is joy for us to help us overcome it. And I want everyone here to remember that. I want to acknowledge that in the face of Bill 5, we all felt many things, but we can also feel joy for the environment and the land that is still outside. We need to step into it. And finally, I want to invite everyone here to be part of the momentum. This is a pivotal time. Ontarians are ready to mobilize, and they need you. You are a powerful voice. You can connect us. You can connect the land. You can connect people. This is your organization, and we can grow our impact together. Have conversations, be curious, share your ideas to solve problems, and connect us with key folks. You can help us do that. Volunteer, advocate, give, share. Spread the news and get more people to join any environmental movement, but also to join Ontario Nature. Because every action helps protect nature in Ontario and beyond. As birds and the migration quiz taught us, what we do here impacts everywhere. And it doesn't really matter where you are as long as you're engaging with the land and helping to walk gently and heal it. I can't finish without saying how grateful we are for Caroline's nearly 2 decades of dedicated service to nature. I really hope Caroline is here today. If she's not, I'll make sure to say it again to her. She leaves a strong voice for biodiversity in Ontario and has led Ontario Nature through a period of exceptional growth in a very challenging environment. And thank you, Caroline.